More than 2,000 years ago, or approximately 2,000 years ago, a dead Jew wrote, well, before he was dead, when I was a child, I did childish things. When I became an adult, I put away childish things. Devotion is 100% appropriate for a child. Devotion, for instance, consider a calf. A calf has no strength, no cunning, no horns. It is devoted to its mother. It stays by its mother's side. Therefore, the mother's horns protect it from predators. Its mother's udders feed it, thereby giving the child freedom from peril and acquisition of sustenance. Perfectly appropriate. Then something magic hits when that child hits puberty. That vertical devotion for a parent is replaced with a horizontal devotion for peers. And I should say it's replaced. The vertical devotion for a parent is replaced with horizontal love of peers, of community. And by this point, the child has the strength and the cunning and the horns, and the ability to graze on grass no longer requires udders and defend themselves against predators. So what has that to do with quasi-spiritual devotion to teachers or Buddhas or Bodhisattvas or Yadams or Chondros or Dharmapalas? There is a duality. There are two fundamental dualities in Buddhism. The most fundamental duality is the duality between pushing and pulling. The second duality in Buddhism is us and them, or me and you. These dualities multiply our experience of stress. They undermine our ability to be the person that our dog already thinks we are. Devotion feeds these dualities. Consider again the example of the calf and the cow. With the calf looks at the calf's relationship to its mother's horns and its mother's udders, reinforces the calf's duality of pushing and pulling. It also reinforces the calf's duality of self and other, me and mother. They're two different things. I need to be with mom to be safe. Once that calf becomes a cow or a bull and transitions through puberty to adulthood, it transcends those dualities, as I mentioned a few moments ago. So let's review the neuroscience of fear. The center of fear is in the base of the brain, a region called the amygdala. And as long as we are operating from the amygdala, we can't be in the anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy. It's like a toggle switch or a light switch on our wall in our house. It's either down or up. We're either in fear or in love. The duality that comes from devotion keeps us stuck in fear. When we are devoted to a parental figure, real or imagined, whether it is a teacher, regardless of gender, whether it is a teacher or whether it is a real or imagined Buddha, Bodhisattva, Deva, Devi, Dakini, Daka, Dharmapala, whatever fancy word you want to put on it. Our devotion to a celestial entity or a spiritual figure is always going to undermine our love. There's a reason why the Tibetans who are most enthusiastic for devotion have to work the hardest to cultivate love, whereas the Dzogchen yogis, who are all about simply transcending fear through mindfulness and meditation, said that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. By forsaking devotion and simply practicing mindfulness and meditation, the transmigration from amygdala to anterior cingulate gyrus is effortless and automatic. But what is this mindfulness and this mindfulness meditation of which we speak? The domain of mindfulness is our inhalation. During each inhalation, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our sympathetic nervous system, which has evolved not to actively concentrate, but instead to merely notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, enabling us to notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, imaginings, and even confabulations. But what do we do with all that stuff that we notice? We meditate upon it. But how do we do that? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. It's just that simple. Noticing and releasing frees us from the tyranny of fear and allows our love to be spontaneous and uncontrived. But remember, the biological root of devotion, the biological root of a calf's devotion to its mother, is peril and hunger, and an inability to feed itself, an inability to protect itself. It is rooted in fear. Transcending that role of child to role of adults frees us from fear and allows us to access the neurology of love and cooperation. Consider, if you will, kitty cats. Kitty cats, especially kittens, are known for cooperation. Watch kitty cats who are kittens who are nursing. They will fight to the death over access to a nip. The two cats will fight over one nip while ignoring a vacant nip. That is how blinded by fear devotion makes us. The assumption of devotion is, I cannot protect myself. I cannot feed myself. The assumption of love is, not only can I protect and feed myself, I can protect and feed others as well. There's a huge disconnect, and we're not talking about changing beliefs or changing emotions. We're talking about which part of the brain circuits we're going to access. Hey, I'm not saying the object of your devotion doesn't exist. I'm saying devotion to that entity, real or imagined, does more harm than good. That is why when we read the 8 Noble Truths, we don't see devotion. We see wisdom, we see love, we see enthusiasm, we see kindness, we see mindfulness, we see meditation, and that's it. The Buddha warned against ritualism in the Dhammapada. Remember the quote, better to spend a single hour in meditation than a lifetime spent tending a sacred flame. The assumption behind devotion is less than. We transcend that fear simply by practicing mindfulness and meditation. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Together as a team, it could be quite lovely if we chanted the Monday morning excerpt from the most fundamental Dzogchen text, titled The Vast Expanse of Vajrasattva, composed by the first corporeal Dzogchen teacher, Garab Dorje, translated from the Tibetan into English by Geshe Donden, and adapted as well as amplified by yours truly. Good morning, James. If at any point at all during this morning's session, you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist chanting, or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Striking while the iron is hot. Together. Listen over to us when I will show you the truth of your being. So right off the bat, this isn't some guy saying, sinner, you's in a heap of trouble. He's not saying, because of Adam and Eve, you were born with original sin. He's saying, hey, if you can hear me, if you can hear my voice or read my words, you are good. Consider, if you will, that wonderful scene inside the cell in Young Frankenstein, when Dr. Frankenstein is comforting the monster, saying, this is a good boy. This is a mother's joy. That's pretty much what Garab Dorje is doing right now. Together, you are and always have been Vajrasattva, the infinite consciousness, living presence, and creative power of the divine. So I'm going to transform this metaphor into a simile through the cunning use of the word like. We are already wired for mindfulness and meditation and empathy through the tissues of our sympathetic nervous system, our parasympathetic nervous system, and our anterior cingulate gyrus. We are already complete. We already have what we need to become the person that our dogs already think we are. All we have to do is step out of our own way. Together. The vast spaciousness of being always good, the way of liberation for all beings, beyond appearance and disappearance and beyond the grasp of the intellect. We already have the neurological wetware required to help us help others, to help us transcend the fundamental dualities that keep us forever confused and knee-deep in turmoil. Let's continue. Love being our essence, attainment is already complete. There is no need to strive at practicing great compassion. Love being the supreme good, there is no need either to extol the many splendid qualities of compassion. We are already wired for the highest love, which is spontaneous and uncontrived. Listen, if you're dating someone who has to remind themselves to be kind to you, you're probably up shit's creek. You need to be with someone who can't help but be kind to you, no less tender and lovey-dovey. Similarly, if we have to choose to be kind to others, our spiritual journey, in the words of Bugs Bunny, has taken a wrong turn at Albuquerque. The test of our meditation, the test of our mindfulness, is whether or not we feel love and whether that love is spontaneous and uncontrived. If in response to others around us we want to slap them upside the skull, our meditation isn't cutting the mustard. If in response to others' idiocy we want to be as kind to them and as helpful to them as possible, we're doing good. Let's continue. Phenomena not other than the true condition. Without input on all part they appear and disappear. With every in-breath our perceptions focus. With every exhalation we find it easy to let go. We don't have to force this. It is automatic. Together. Naturally, arising wisdom need not be actively sought. Self-liberating by nature, it reveals the way. This is also the final idea of the 55th verse of this text. We don't have to force letting go. We are already wired to let go with every exhalation. Nagarjuna taught the true truth of the conventional and the ultimate. Perception and release. The late Dilgood Kensei taught that he's never seen a one-winged bird take to the sky. Likewise, we require both mindfulness and meditation to traverse the path of liberation. Let's chant. Earth, air, fire, and water, all the indwelling divine. So we don't need some real or map. To borrow a phrase from the second Ghostbusters movie, or maybe it's the first one. We don't need some dusty Babylonian. We don't need some real imagined entity to possess us and treat us like a great fleshy marionette. All the components that we cannot help but notice, whether it is the 100+ current periodic table of elements or the early Iron Age 4 elements, we can notice things going on in our body. Very active noticing and releasing is all the divinity we require. Let's continue. Despite a mistaken notion, liberation dawns from within our own being and is not dependent on others. So as we breathe in, we can notice all kinds of foolishness on our part. We can notice fear, we can notice hatred, we can notice greed, we can notice ruthlessness. But regardless of how wise or foolish we are, those things will fade with every exhalation. We don't need to force it. The key to transcendental wisdom is already latent within our central nervous system. And here's the wild thing. Here's something that is utterly controversial. Remember, Sturgeon's Law teaches that 90% of everything is crap, including meditation teachers. 90% of so-called Dzogchen teachers are ignorant of this phrase right here and is not dependent on others. We don't need the quote-unquote real or imagined blessings of a teacher of flesh, blood, and bone, no less a real or imagined dead teachers or Buddhas or Bodhisattvas or Yadams or Khandros or Dharmapalas or any one of 1,000 denizens of tantric tapestries. All we need is to work with our central nervous system in the most wonderful way. If you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as Yoda on Dagobah under the guidance of the non-corporeal Qui-Gon Jinn, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. As a spiritual exercise, kind of like push-ups, let's perform a recitation of empathetic bodhicitta and enthusiastic refuge. We'll begin with the triplet version. May I liberate all, liberate all, let's try this again. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging. by relying on thee. Buddha's example, instructions, and students. These three things are known metaphorically as the three wish-fulfilling jewels. Together. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. All right. Let's practice. As I mentioned during class, mindfulness is as easy as allowing our central nervous system to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly during each inhalation. It's therefore appropriate to silently and mentally recite the three-syllable phrase known as this, or its one-syllable counterpart, this. Key to meditation is to simply allow our body to physically relax and mentally release in harmony with our exhalation, while silently and mentally reciting the three-syllable, relaxing, or the one-syllable verb, ease. Come, let us meditate together right now. So I'm going to share a secret with you. The reason I'm devoted to the text, the spaciousness of Vajrasattva, is not because I believe in the story of the author and therefore trust the text blindly. The reason I like the text so much is that after more than 30 years of study and practice, I found a text that is in alignment with that which I've already observed in my own mind and my own body during meditation. I like this text because not only is it confirm what I've already seen work in my life and the lives of my students, but it contradicts so many of the errors that undermine meditation, and therefore can serve as a wonderful resource for those who are good-hearted and really want to grow in meditation. For those who aren't good-hearted and would rather just blindly follow tradition, regardless of the results it gives them, It can't help them. Nothing can. I once met a man way back in the 90s. He accompanied one of my first tantric teachers to visit me and give me empowerments and teachings. And this layman who was accompanying the Lama was predatory. Decades elapsed. That Lama perished. I encountered that layman still. He's still predatory. He's still rigid. He's still self-deceived. And he has decided to no longer receive teachings until his dead teacher reincarnates and is ready to teach him again. He pretends he's doing that out of devotion. He's really just doing it to feel sanctimonious in his inaction. For those who delight in sanctimony and inaction, you can't tear the falsehoods away from them. To paraphrase Morpheus in conversation with Neo from the first Matrix movie, they're so hopelessly inured to the system that enslaves them, they will fight you and prevent you from liberating them. It has been said, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. Similarly, it's not our job to show up on people's doorsteps, wake them up on a Saturday morning, and debate metaphysics with them. Be a bright, shining light, and those who want growth will recognize your light and either become your student or simply follow your example. Whether people are addicted to illicit substances or disempowering assumptions, addiction is a dysfunction of the dopamine circuit. You cannot argue successfully with dopamine. It's like talking to a brick wall. But you can wait until someone has a moment of clarity, a moment of hypersuggestibility, and then be there for them when they finally turn to you. At any point you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Let us seal this morning's practice with a bit of the old chanting. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness flow spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery. May everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could type something in the chat window. You could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could share it with a friend. You could even help support this channel on Patreon. In approximately 2.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's mid-morning live group meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me,